I want to take a little bit of time out to say thank you for my wonderful patrons, which you see right here on the screen. If you go to Crimson60620 at patreon.com, you can actually help support the show and get your name shown up on the screen. Thank you.
I want to start off this a little bit serious, more serious than normal, okay? And I want to actually start by talking about some of the fucked up things that happens. Now, I've done conversations, I've done talks about how, when it comes to revolutionary thinkers, especially in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, a lot of things are fucked up. Like the FBI definitely fucked with people. And it was really, really fucking sad and it was really, really upsetting. And I don't know what exactly we're gonna do about it. So we're gonna start off talking about a individual. Um, he every year he writes some sort of letter to the sitting president, and I missed the one in 2020, but you can go back to my 2019 coverage of a guy named Leonard Peltier. Now, just to give you an update of it, here, let's go to Wikipedia, and it's it's openly it's openly uh, mentioned in the source that one this article has. Oh, let's go. This article has multiple issues. It The neutrality of this article is disputed, and as we know, in a lot of cases, neutrality it is not the same as objectivity. This article may rely excessively on sources too closely associated with the subject, potentially preventing an article from being verifiable and neutral. And again, in history, there's no neutrality. So, Leonard Peltier, an American Indian activist and a militant member of the American Indian movement who's, who, following a controversial trial, was convicted of aiding and abetting murder, has been in prison since 1977. He was sentenced to two consecutive life terms of imprisonment for the aiding and abetting, resulting in the death of two Federal Bureau of Investigation agents in June 26, 1975, shooting at the Pine Ridge Indian Reserve in South Dakota. In 1999, in his 1999 memoir, Prison Writings, My Life is Sundance, Palantir admitted in participating in the shootout, but said he did not kill the FBI agents. Human rights watchdogs such as Amnesty International and political figures include Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, and the 14th Dalai Lama have campaigned for clemency for Palantir in recent decades. At the end of the shootout, Palantir was an active member of the American Indian movement, an indigenous rights advocacy group that worked to combat the racism and police brutality experienced by American Indians. Palantir ran for president of the United States in 2004, winning the nomination for the Peace and Freedom Party and receiving 27,607 votes, limited to the ballot in California. He ran as the vice president of the United States in 2020 on a ticket with Gloria La Rivera. I butchered that name. As the president candidate on tickets for the Party for Socialism and Liberation and the Peace and Freedom Party. He withdrew from those tickets on August 1st, 2020 for health reasons. Now, why would I bring this up? every year, excluding the 2020 letter, um, you would see a letter from him requesting clemency, requesting for a release. You see this, and let's just go to the most recent letter that we have. Dear President Biden and administration, release Leonard Peltier. This was written by Ruth Ann Buffalo. These are, I believe, the nations that she's a part of. This letter is sent to President Joseph R. Biden, Mr. Michael I'm not going to pronounce that name correctly. The Federal Bureau of Prisons, Mr. Merrick B. Garland, Attorney General, Mr. A. J. Keller, South Regional Director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Dear President Biden, Attorney General Garland, and Director Kevin Jala, and Director Keller. I know I've butchered that man's name. I apologize. We write to request the expedient release of an American Indian elder, Leonard Peltier, who is 77 years old and who has served more than 44 years in federal prisons, some in solitary confinement, and numerous prisons across the United States. He suffers from severe health conditions such as diabetes and abdominal aortic aneurysm. An abdominal aortic aneurysm that can be lethal if ruptured. The Department of Justice issued a national response to the COVID-19 pandemic, authorizing the Federal Bureau of Prisons to release elderly inmates and those with underlying health conditions from federal prisons. Mr. Peltier is currently imprisoned in the Coleman Federal Correctional Complex in Florida. Given his underlying health conditions and age, we ask he may be granted clemency and immediate action be taken to release him from federal custody. Mr. Peltier was convicted and sentenced to two life sentences in 1977 for the murders of the Federal Bureau of Investigation agents Ronald Williams and Jack Kohler. The agents were killed on June 26, 1975, during a confrontation with members of the American Indian Movement on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Many veterinary and procedural issues arose during Mr. Peltier's prosecution, such as one alleged key eyewitness to the shootings later recanting her testimony and admitting that the FBI had threatened her and her family. In a 1980 Freedom of Information Act ruling revealed that Mr. Peltier's lawyers that the prosecution withheld important documentary evidence that may have assisted in Mr. Peltier's case. Many legal experts have criticized the trials for its numerous due process problems. Appeals for presidential considerations of clemency by many distinguished individuals and organizations have not resulted in action. This further diminishes Americans' Indians' faith in the criminal justice system throughout the country. Given the nature of the case, however, support for Mr. Peltier's case has been widespread and strong, including those who once were a part of his criminal prosecution. In 2021, former U.S. Attorney James H. Reynolds, whose office handles the criminal prosecution and appeal of Mr. Peltier, joined a movement that had garnered over 275,000 signatures on a petition requesting President Biden grant Mr. Pellentier's Clemency. We join the October 8th, 2021 letter to your office by our U.S. congressional colleagues Raul M. Gervala, Barbara Lee, Jesus G. Chewy Garcia, Cori Bush, Emmanuel Cleaver II, Gerald Huffman, Teresa Larger Fernandez, Rashida Tlaib, Palaya Jalapal, Betty McColeman, and Melina Stansbury, requesting that Mr. Pellentier's expected release and grant of clemency. It's kind of ironic that some of the people that's fighting are, people of the Justice Democrats and the squad, especially Cori Bush, who just got there. Palaya, Representative Jayapal, thank you. These are people who literally are the progressive. Of course, Rashida Tlaib. These are people of the progressive caucus. But let's go. Let's see. We also joined the tribe. We also joined the tribal nations leaders and organizations who have supported Pellentier's case. The National Congress of American Indians has passed multiple resolutions requesting his clemency and release. The tribal nations within our representative states and beyond have supported a call for Mr. Pellentier's clemency and release. The Ujala Sox Suez tribe, where the shooting took place, in the Turtle Mountain Band of the Chippewa Indians, where Mr. Pelletier is enrolled, have gone as far as to propose plans for his return home, assuming the responsibilities of housing, healthcare, employment, and access to the American Indian ceremonial and cultural practice. The Amnesty International, a global human rights organization with over 10 million members, supporters and activists worldwide continue to call for Mr. Pellentier's release. To this day, Mr. Pellentier has received overwhelming support from other international respected champions of human rights, including the late Nelson Mandela, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Mikhail Gorbachev. Is that Mikhail Gorbachev? I have hope so. Including Mary Robinson, former president of Ireland and the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, the European Parliament, the Belgian Parliament, the Italian Parliament, the Kennedy Memorial Center for Human Rights, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, Rigoberta Menchú, 7 Nobel Peace Prize laureates, including Archbishop Desmond Tutu and Sari Ibadi, Rage Against the Machine, Pete Seeger, Carlos Santana, Harry Belafonte, Gloria Stefan, and Robert Redford. This list represents but a fraction of Mr. Pelletier's total supporters. Given this overwhelming support, the constitutionality of underlying Mr. Pelletier's prosecution and his status as an elderly inmate with severe underlying health conditions, we believe that it is highly appropriate that the BOP prioritize the expedient release of Mr. Pelletier. We therefore request that Leonard Peltier receive an expedited release and be granted clemency. We ask you, Mr. President, to do what is right. Let Mr. Pelletier go home and live his final years among his people and act as a grace and as an act of grace and compassion. And we have the list of people who signed it and support this action. Now, I know you guys are probably saying, why did I take so long going through this, reading through this, and just taking the time to go through that? One, this is somebody who stood up for the rights of indigenous people. This is somebody who, after the U.S. screwed, like, the thing is, people say the original sin of the U.S. was slavery. No, the original fucking sin of the U.S. was wiping out the natives that were here. And then the slavery, because they couldn't enslave the natives because, they killed them through disease and war. So they brought slaves from Africa. And when we can't actually, as people that have been affected by past sins, stick together and say, like, yo, this is wrong, we should stand up for other people, then what are we in for? If a black person can't speak to the genocide that happened to the natives, and you just want to say, like, well, yeah, what about black folks? You kind of sound like it's just about you and it's about revenge. And no, like, you wouldn't, like, shit like this. This is the whole, like, this is the reason why I pay no fucks to people like Professor Flowers or the Black Hammer organization, because they don't talk about shit like this. Shit like this don't come up on a fucking radar because, oh, that happened and shit like that. Shit like that don't come up on a radar because it's about revenge. Yet and still, we have people that's sitting in federal prisons, and those are the ones that lived, all because they had the audacity to stand up to the most motherfucking powerful ass nation in the world and their way of trying to fucking keep motherfuckers in line. I can't with these people, man. I can't. I have no faith in somebody who doesn't want to stand up for other people, especially those who have wronged the fucking U.S. and now they must be punished. This is a human rights issue, and not only does the Peltier case highlight that the Native people have been screwed by the U.S. government, but it also highlights some of the shit that prosecutors do in order to win case, including shit that's illegal. It's funny, we did have that verdict over the last week or so with Rittenhouse, and we can see a two-tier justice system. I'm just saying. But anyway, guys, yeah, they can put my name on that list. And anyway, I want to say thank you for watching this clip. Stick around, we're gonna have more show for you, and like, share, and subscribe, and all that other good stuff. And catch you guys on the next video. And we're gonna cut it here. All
right. If I gave myself the power